Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another meeting for the Kubernetes release team for 1.18. I will be your host today. My name is Jorge Alarcón. Before we get started, like always, I have to mention that we have a code of conduct, which essentially boils down to please be nice and kind to each other at all times. As we progress into this meeting, if there is anyone interested in being the official note taker, please feel free to to put down your name in the meeting notes. And with that, let's get started. And let's dive down into enhancements with Jeremy.
All right, so we have a super exciting update today. So if your Monday isn't going great, it's going to be awesome after this. So we had a late breaking exception request that just got submitted. It's for the kubectl diff enhancement, which we have tracked as going to stable. So this is a bug fix. It's not directly related to any of the feature work they were doing to promote this to stable. However, the bug fix PR has been open for a little bit. And it seems like all the code changes that were requested happened before code freeze, but we weren't tracking this because they didn't disclose it to us and it wasn't included in their umbrella tracking issue. So they're asking for an exception now to merge this bug fix in. So we should discuss that, I think. We're still at, oh, sorry, I didn't update the total number. I can't do math that quickly. The number is basically the same number of enhancements that we had Friday, with one exception. We had a KEP that was merged before enhancements freeze, but there was no issue filed for it. So one of the requirements for merging KEPs is supposed to be that there is an issue for it in the Kubernetes enhancements repo, and that's what we use to track enhancements for the releases. This one didn't have it. And specifically, it is a change to client Go. So if you have been following along, there's a change going into client Go that will add context as the first argument, like kind of the Go pattern for all the things. And they did not meet code freeze for that. They're very close. They asked for like a 1-day extension, but it points out an issue with the process that hopefully can be addressed by some changes that we're proposing in future KEP work. But we approved this exception, and as part of that, they went ahead and opened an issue to track it. So there's a new enhancement issue 1601, and there's no documentation associated with this other than the generated SDK docs. So they didn't miss anything there. The enhancement was merged before enhancements freeze, and it had all the criteria. It just didn't get that issue associated with it. So we would have tracked it anyway. It just didn't check that box for us. Moving on, let's talk about the exceptions that were granted so far. The first one is taint-based eviction, number 166. They had kind of a delayed merge of some of the PRs they had because they had incorrectly labeled their KEP in SIG scheduling, and it should have belonged to SIG node. And that KEP update sat open for a long time after enhancement freeze. And one of the things they needed to do was move end-to-end tests. So the tests already existed and they were merged, but they were in SIG scheduling. They needed to be moved to SIG node. So that PR couldn't merge until the KEP enhancement merged. And that happened really late because SIG node is busy, and we had to ping them a couple times. I think they're pretty much done with that. They're waiting for one more PR to go in. The second one that we approved was for sidecar containers. This is another one that kind of sat around for a while, and we escalated up and got people to start taking notice of it. And we proved the exception, but then later they decided to defer this to 1.19 because there's a lot of complexity involved in kubelet code, and this touches some of that. Next, we have graduate node local DNS cache to GA. This was a small one, and it just didn't have the milestone applied before code freeze. So we got that taken care of. And then the last one is 1601, which is the client Go issue. So those are the exceptions that we granted. Of those four, 3 of them are still there. Again, the sidecar containers has deferred to 1.19. We have 2 exceptions that we haven't granted, or that we denied. SCTP support in beta 1.18. This was of interest because they also missed the docs placeholder date. So we gave them an exception for that, and they got the docs placeholder thing open. But this is adding a bunch of end-to-end tests and promoting to beta at the same time. So there's not really enough time for those end-to-end tests to soak, and just everybody felt like this wasn't a great thing to grant, so we denied that one. And then this one is another one that doesn't have a KEP associated with it directly. It's extract cloud provider specific credential providers. This is one that had been open for a little while and just didn't merge before code freeze. There wasn't a lot of expediency put into it, so we didn't think that it made sense to grant that one either. So the only one that's outstanding still in terms of getting things merged in is the taint-based evictions. They have, I think, one PR open still. And then this current one that we're tracking now for kubectl diff. The kubectl diff one, again, is just a bug fix. There's some question about whether we're reviewing the PR right now just to see if we think there's anything that should be addressed inside of it. Outside, like it's been approved, it just doesn't have the milestone right now, so it can't merge. So if anybody has any thoughts about that one, we'd love to hear them. I think we're leaning towards approving it. However, it kind of deviates from the process, and it's not really, is it release blocking or not release blocking? Like at this point, we should only be doing release blocking PRs. Hard to tell if that one's really release blocking or not. Also, they knew about it before code freeze. So.
Does anyone have any questions, comments regarding anything with the enhancements? Going once, twice. So I guess just a closing remark that I can add is we'll probably continue talking a little bit with kubectl diff after this meeting, and possibly also discuss why what we could do to kind of prevent enhancements from work related to enhancements from slipping away. For example, this one. Just to add a little bit to the story, the kubectl diff something that we just discovered is the team that's working on that. They had a separate tracking issue in the KK repo. So so tracking issue and enhancements, one in KK, and seems to be that the whole patch for it to fix a kubectl diff was not. Assuming that people want to stay communicated, we just lost track of it somewhere along the way. But other than that, I guess again, Jeremy and team, thank you very much for everything that you all do, and we'll keep on talking about enhancements for the rest of the week. But for right now, moving on to CI Signal, Nico.
Hello everyone, happy Monday. So. We didn't have much progress since Friday. We're still yellow, but there are some other stuff that was going on the master broking job that is failing, the SKU class latest kubectl stable. The fix was supposed to be in the PR that I linked in the doc, but something was messed up with the rebase, so we're expecting a different PR to be open for to fix the job as well. The other two jobs that are GC Windows jobs that are failing, and they were failing because of a 6 CLI test case, which seems that but the jobs after in some point they seem totally broken. So I opened another issue to investigate this and ping Windows team for it. The build package steps is this is still failing, but it's not critical. It's also prioritized as important soon. It's the same. The release misc, we have only one really hard flaking job, which I linked in the doc below. You check it out. And in 1.18 blocking and 1.18 informing dashboards is like the same jobs that are failing with master blocking and forming corresponding pretty much that's all. So, any questions, guys? I guess, George, you have some comments on about the SQ class latest, because I think that you investigate some stuff there, right?
SKU cluster layers. Yeah, actually, Rob and Jordan have been working on it. There is there's a perfect ideal solution. That's a PR that is open and referenced somewhere in the issue. I can find it and add it to the notes later, but there is the ideal solution, which was proposed by Jordan and was open a couple hours ago. Then there is a short-term solution that is just going to get the end-to-end test, the broken end-to-end test working for now. That one is currently a work in progress. The Rob Scott opened a PR for that one to replace the one that you referenced in the notes. The only difference is the PR is now against the release 1.17 branch because turns out that the failure is because we were testing 1.17 code in that job. And as far as I know, that is that is the latest right now with respect to that issue. Which, as I'm checking right now, that is the only thing that we have broken in master blocking. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, it's awesome. So that's kind of good. The other thing that I want to double check. So I'm looking at master informing GC Windows 2019 master. As you mentioned, the job is broken. Do we have any reason to believe that this might be related to Kubernetes, or is it a test infra kind of issue?
I don't know. I just I noticed the job that I opened an issue directly. I didn't did any further investigation about it. But it seems that by the time that it started failing with this kind of failings, nothing was merged by that time. So I guess maybe it's related with the test infra issue.
Okay, so that's interesting. And this is a different job, right? It's kind of hard to track with the long name. So the broken one is GCE Windows 2019 master, and there is another issue for Kubernetes E2E Windows GCE 2019. So this is a separate job, right?
Yeah, it's different job, but they are failing. It seems that they're failing for the same reason. Actually, most of the tests, they were failing before because of the 6CLI test case. But right now, if we check also in the job logs, most of them are failing because of some timeouts. Maybe it's related with infrastructure reason. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any more questions for CI Signal? Going once, twice. Thank you so much, Nico. And thank you to the entire CI Signal team for everything that you all do. So moving on to bug triage. John, are you here?
I am. Hello. Our current status is red. As far as queries go, for non-test flake issues in KK, we're down to 3, which is -4 from last Friday. We have 1 remaining critical urgent issue that is still open that we're tracking. We do not have any important soon issues, which is good. So that's -2 from last Friday. For open PRs in KK for this release, we've got 14, so that's -12 from Friday. So that was a good drop. For critical urgent PRs, we've got 2 remaining. For important soon, we've got 9. That's -7 from Friday. And then open KK issues for this release, we're down to 21. For the rest of this week, we're going to continue monitoring for the exceptions for anyone that we need to start tracking. There are a few PRs that we need to potentially remove from this current milestone. We will be evaluating those this week and taking the appropriate action. Thank you.
Sweet, thank you so much. Does anyone have any comments, questions for bug triage? If not, then we can move on to docs with Binet. And again, like always, thank you so much to you, John, and the entire bug triage team. And Pineth, docs.
Yeah, hello everyone. So today we have a docs deadline like March 9th, that is placeholder docs PR should be ready for review state. And I see all the enhancements docs are ready for review state except one. So I added the link to the enhancement in the doc sheet. And other than that, just we have one enhancement which is not adhering to the deadline. So the status is yellow as of now. And we have another hardship with the dev 1.18 branch. So we accidentally merged a sync up between master and dev 1.18 into dev 1.18 without a label tied merge method merge. So it created conflicts within the branch. So we reverted it back, but it needed a rebase for all the years which are raised against a 1.18. So I think George, you are aware of it. They the SIG docs coaches have already pulled you into that PR. So we are doing good, but it is one thing to be noticed.
Okay, that's good to know. So, off the top of your head, right now, could you say a little bit about why the issue happened with all the merge conflicts?
Yes. So what happened was usually as a docs lead, I my job is to track the enhancements as well as to do a sync up between three branches, which is Dev 1.18, Master, and a Release 1.17. So whoever does any changes to the master should be part of Dev 1.18 to make sure that the on the day of release the docs merge happens easily. So as a part of that, I keep syncing up master and Dev 1.18. So when I raised a PR against Dev 1.18, the sync PR, the docs release handbook says that we should add a label tied merge method merge so that it does some operations. So I somehow missed to do that label and we merged it. So that's how the integration PR started showing us a conflicts in couple of files. So we reverted it back and then we tried to make sure the branch is healthy. But people, when we have merged that, the couple of days earlier, there was a deadline for docs placeholder PR. People started cloning the dev 1.18 and raised the PRs with that revert commit. So they needed all they need is to do a rebase now before they merge it into dev 1.18. So
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, it was a bit confusing. Yes, I didn't know like missing a label will cause us such a huge confusion. But yes, we are actively tracking all the docs enhancements, so it should be okay. Yeah.
That's super interesting. The issue with the label is a fix. Well, is a fix, I guess, or is a something that is well documented, but for some you forgot or somebody forgot to.
So it is already documented in release handbook. So I have done couple of sync ups earlier, but somehow I just missed that branch, and even Zach missed out. So we both together merged it into Dev 1.18, and then we reverted it back in next 2 to 3 days. But in this 2 to 3 days, other all the enhancements owners started cloning the Dev 1.18 and started uh, doing the placeholder PR. So that was an issue. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. The dumb question, I guess, it will be: is there something that you think we could do to prevent this kind of issue in the future?
I think like I'm planning to do one session with my shadows so that how important are labels so that they won't get into this problem. So yeah, it is already documented, but the frequency of we follow the docs every time we sync up is a bit less. So we just take the docs for first time and then the next sync ups we just do it manually. So yeah, I'll just share it with my shadows and I'll try to ask them to review the release handbook, and if they feel any gaps I'll try to add that. So there is already an issue raised against the release SIG release to update the docs release handbook. So I'm just waiting more time to gather all the gaps and problems I face to clearly document in the release handbook.
Okay, perfect. So sounds like everything is covered now.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And George, what will we do with the enhancement which is not adhering to the deadline today? So,
then, is that are you asking in general or with one specific enhancement in mind?
yeah, one specific enhancement which is not adhering to the deadline, which they should have a docs ready for review state today, but they didn't update any docs to that specific enhancement.
Oh, okay. The run multiple scheduling profiles one.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's the one.
So, uh, I definitely want to check on this a little bit more. But my first thought, and Jeremy, I would love also some recommendations on this, and the rest of the team. If they haven't updated anything and they haven't been responsive, I will say that we drop the that we drop the enhancement.
Yeah, I think I'm thumbs up on that. If they have not merged, the cutoff should be probably the end of the day. And if there's nothing merged, which is highly likely at this point, because the placeholder PR essentially just has a header called multiple profiles with the word to do beneath it. Um, with that in mind, like it's a deadline and we should hold them to it. They'll either need to ask for an exception or be removed from the milestone.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
so
that sounds a little bit bad. If there's only the to do and the header, then yeah.
I have another quick question to Jeremy. So there are two other enhancements which doesn't have any docs, but they are deferred. So I can drop them from tracking, right?
Yes. Yeah, we just hadn't removed them from the sheet yet. They're marked to deferred, but we hadn't run the macro to remove things from the milestone until all of the exception requests have been approved. So we'll do that today. So they should get removed when we run that macro today.
Okay, sure, sure. Thank you.
Other than that, are you all set with docs, Vinith?
Yeah, yeah, we are doing good. So I already reached out to all the enhancements, placeholder PRs asking to rebase with slash hold. So I think, yeah, we are having a good response at this point of time. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any more comments, questions, suggestions for docs? Going once, twice, and solved. So thank you, Vinith and docs team for everything that you are doing. And with that, let's move on to release notes. Ray.
All right, so our status is green. We have no change since last Monday, and we're waiting for 118 beta 2 to be cut on March 11th. And that's it for me.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any comments, questions for release notes? If not, thank you, Ray, and release notes team. Now moving on to comms with Karen.
Hello, we are green. We're finishing voting today. We just have one more thing to go through. And then I've actually been talking to Caitlin Barnard, and she's the blog editorial lead. And she mentioned to me that it looks like over the past few releases, the blogs have kind of varied in terms of how much coverage there is. So like for the last release, I think there were like 2 feature blog releases, and then the one before that, it was 1. And I think for 1.15, it was 1. And then for 1.14, I think there were 4 blog releases. So she mentioned that there might have been some documentation that was lost in between in terms of like how we want to do the blogs. But in the meantime, I've had my team stack rank. So we've all chosen like our top 5, and we'll figure out like, like what we collectively feel like should be covered first. And well, we'll probably, what I imagine is happening, will happen is like, we'll probably cover maybe 3 features. But I'm still kind of figuring out what we should do, just because like it seems like that pattern got lost somewhere in between. So yes, I will talk to CNCF about that, and then yeah, and then once we do that, I'm just going to try and get everything ready to reach out to the SIGs for their blog content and get that ready. So Yeah, we're good. That's it. I don't have questions or comments or any insight as to like thoughts on like how many blog release or release blogs there should be.
Quick question, and this might be a dumb question. So normally the blogs, they go out relatively close to the release, right?
Yeah.
Is there any reason why, let's say, we couldn't keep asking people to write blogs about the features that they promote in the latest release for a longer time, let's say 1 or 2 months?
Oh, you just mean like after the initial release for them, like do like a highlight maybe like 2 weeks later or 4 weeks later, like ongoing kind of?
Yeah.
Who would, so then my question back to you would be like, who would manage that, or would we just automate it? Because like with every new release we have like a different team, right? So like, yeah, so it'd be like who would, it's like would the new team take over handling the previous team's blog posts since they would be within the time period of the new release team, or do we just schedule everything out in advance? Yeah, I think that's worth looking into. I think what Caitlin was saying was that okay, yeah, Lockie says blog-wise, as many as you can gather. Yeah, because it sounds like what they did, like maybe for 1.13, I think. This is before my time, but I think Caitlin said that they had like 5 different blog posts, and then they released like one a day during like the release week. And so this wasn't necessarily like spread out during the after the release, but around the time. While he's saying because of team change. Yeah, okay. Schedule in advance because of team change. Yeah, I think that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to have more than like one blog post, like, because I think what we've been doing for the last few ones is just kind of like combining the announcements into one blog post versus doing deep dives on several different items. So, but I'll chat with my team and we'll figure out what we think is best and then check in with the leads in CNCF. Yeah.
That sounds good. At least a dumb proposal that I had in my head is if I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure that previous releases we had more than 3 features in each one of them.
Yeah.
Just and having like a top 5, that sounds really good. But you know, if there was a way to shed light into all the other work,
Yeah.
I don't see that being a super bad thing. But I don't know if it will be possible in terms of yeah, I don't know if that's doable or something that you or the CNCF want to do, or
Yeah. I mean, I think the hardest part will probably be getting content. So yeah.
normally who writes the blog post, or at least most of the blog post, like CNCF, the technical writers, or can they?
From what I've seen in the past, it's usually like the co-chairs or like the SIG. Usually we reach out to the chairs and then they come back with the content. So I don't know, depending on like how it's done, like I think usually the co-chairs do it, and I don't know if they end up like reaching out to the rest of their team. But yeah, usually the co-chairs of the SIGs that we're reaching out to will give us the content.
Okay.
And then it gets like added together, and then yeah, and then I think they like there might be some like editing work to weave it all together, depending on the structure of the blog post, but the bulk of the actual like technical content comes from the co-chairs. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm done with my dumb questions. Does anyone
No,
have
you're not.
any comments, suggestions? Going once.
I think +1 to more content over a longer period of time rather than one blog. It's just always, in 1.16, it's just hard. There were something like 30 or 40 enhancements and we could get people to write about 3.
Yeah.
So it's not doing the scheduling that's hard. It's actually getting the people that wrote the enhancements to provide the content on the blog. So if there's any way you can have more success at garnering that, that's, you know, I think people would love to have more content. It's just hard to get.
Yeah.
That makes sense, and that was kind of also why I was asking if it will be possible to do blog posts like over a longer
Later.
period of time, like actually give people like if you want to write a blog post about your feature, you have 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks post release to give us something kind of idea.
Yeah, I think how it plays out, George, is it's just a lot of work. Like people are doing the CAP, writing the code, getting the docs done, and then you're asking them to write a blog on top of it. So, Karen said the leads work on it. I've seen a lot of the enhancement owners actually write the blogs. And then you're asking them to do that on a very strict timeline. And if you don't get it before the release goes out, they're even less likely to do it because they've moved on. It's like now I'm thinking about 1.19. I'm thinking about the next thing I have to write. So, it's really hard to motivate people to get them to write things, and I kind of understand too, because you've asked them to do so much already, and now you're asking them to be a writer as well. So I don't know if there's a better way where we could get technical writers and say, hey, can you just sit in a room for 30 minutes on a Zoom and explain what your enhancement does, and somebody else will write it? Because I don't know if that's a better model than what we currently have. But it's really hard to have people who are writing the code be willing to write the blogs just because they're already so fatigued. There's just something else we're adding to their list.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think something that might be interesting to follow up on. So, but yeah, at least for the time being, we can follow up afterwards if anyone is interested. For right now, does anyone have any more comments, questions, suggestions for docs?
Comms.
Sorry. But I hear silence, so that I'm gonna think that is a good thing. So thank you very much, Karen and team, for everything that you all do. And let's see if I can get the teams right this time. Next up, release branch. Carlos.
Hello, happy Monday. We are doing the branch fast forward with no problem till far. And I'm missing today. I'm going to do after this meeting. And for tomorrow, we have 1.18 beta 2 schedule. And Daniel will be cutting. He is the branch manager associate, and he going to be this cutting for this beta 2 for tomorrow. I post in the meeting notes all the issues related to giving access to him, and also the issue that scheduled this cut.
Sweet, thank you so much, Carlos.
No problem. Thank you.
Comments, questions, suggestions for the released branch team? Going once, twice. So thank you again. Thank you so much, Carlos.
Thank you.
And moving on to Emeritus Lead. Lucky, please give us some wisdom.
Thanks, George. Just one quick one today. So we closed out the Shadow mid-release cycle survey on Friday. Thanks to all that participated. We had 69% participation across all the shadows. I just called out some observations. I'm going through the long sections as we speak. But 100% of the shadows said they participated in orientation. 100% of the responding shadows said they have a clear understanding of the role expectations. And then one to call out down the bottom there in the orange is 11% of responding shadows said they had an okay experience, which is still on the positive side. That's 3 stars if you would. But it's, people saying that their experience is just okay. So maybe we want to drill in there and see what the comments state there as to how we better support those shadows. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to digest them and put them into subsequent Emeritus League guidelines so that we can make the shadow program more effective for the release team. So thanks again for the candor and the honesty. I will pass it back to George.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments, questions, suggestions for the emeritus lead? Going once, going twice.
Oh, I have a question.
Go for it.
Lucky, are you going to send us breakdowns for our individual teams or no?
Yeah, I was going to send it to the leads,
Okay,
so
cool.
open up access to the results to the leads. But I just want to filter through it all first.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, again, thank you very much, Lucky. And moving on to release lead updates. So, like always, let's start with the upcoming milestones so we all know what's going on. First off, Doc's deadline, that is today, as it was already mentioned, and it seems that the enhancement that we were just discussing about multiple scheduling profiles, if I remember the name correctly, just got some updates. Other than that, 1.18 beta 2 is planned to be released tomorrow, and hopefully that works out. I believe that after that, next week, we're going to start with the actual RC releases as we get closer and closer to the release deadline. And the next one, next deadline, docs have to be completed, all PRs reviewed and ready to be merged by Monday, March 16, which I believe is next Monday. And the day after that, since I know everyone has been enjoying code freeze up until now, but next week, we're gonna start with Kota, open up the master branch, and go into our 1.18 branch for the remainder of this release cycle. And other than that, the public service announcement is that if you have found anything interesting, if you learn anything that you want to make sure to pass on to future generations of release team members, please write a quick comment about whatever that is, or about your experiences in general in the release team retrospective document, which I linked in my section. It's also at the top of the meeting notes and in the open discussion for every single meeting, at least for the past couple of weeks. Also, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions about how you would like to improve anything in the release process, please feel free to drop your name in there, and making a quick stop for anyone to give me your questions, comments, suggestions, criticisms, anything.
Are we all okay with like the time change? Because I know there's someone on my team that like didn't realize when the call was, or like they were confused because the US had a time change. So just want to make sure we're all synced on that.
That is a good thing. And does anyone want to give a comment on that before I say anything? Okay, so this sounds like something that we can check on Slack after this meeting, just to make sure we get more comments on this. And to your question, that also I also need to start doing some planning on for next week. The plan is like always. Next week we're gonna start with daily burn down meetings, because I know that you all love meetings. So I'm gonna reach out to everyone and get some ideas for any times that you all want to do the meetings for Tuesday and Thursday. So hopefully people that can make it to the regular meetings, they can make it to those meetings, and then we can discuss more Kubernetes goodness. Other than that, does anyone have any more comments, questions, suggestions? And is everyone okay with time zones? I'm gonna take silence as an agreement. And the last section, the last update for today is from Six Scalability. They finally have a broken issue after a couple of weeks of going quiet. There seems to be a performance regression in GC Cosmaster Scalability 100, and that one is currently under investigation. And GC cost 118 scalability 100, as well as other GC and QMark tests seem to be green. So possibly whatever it was a causal regression on the master branch has yet to land on the 118 branch, and that's going to help them debug the issue. Does anyone have any questions, comments for scalability? Going once, twice, sold. So more PSAs from the open discussion. Again, for the last couple of weeks, I had the same. I had linked the same couple of issues. For anyone who might be interested in providing feedback to any of these topics, the first one is release retrospective. Again, if you have anything whatsoever that you want to pass on to future generations, please add a note in there. Then there is the enhancements kept artifacts. If you are interested in the actual mechanics of the release, if you want to propose more ways for us to communicate and help the release team be more time zone friendly, please drop your comments in the Kubernetes SIG release issue 877. And if I haven't checked this one in a bit, but if you are a lead and you think you might benefit from having a tracking spreadsheet of some sort, or if you don't think that that your team needs it, please drop a comment in the Kubernetes SIG release issue 432. Other than that, opening up the floor for any topics, any issues that any of you have. I hear silence. So the only thing that we have left to do is go to the project board, but I'm going to make an executive decision today because we still have a handful of enhancements to figure out and discuss. So for today, I'm just going to call it a day, and I'll try to go through the board asynchronously and ping people. I did a couple days ago, and it seems like things are moving along for the most part. So other than that, want to close off the meeting and thank everyone from showing up, and thank you to every single member of the release team for all the amazing work that you all do. And happy Monday. I'll give you back 15 minutes of your day.
Happy Monday.
Bye.
Happy Monday.
Bye. Happy Monday.